What's up, everybody? This is Peter Schrager for the Fox NFL cheat sheet for week 9. Here are 5 things that I'm thinking about as we head in to another pivotal NFL weekend. Number 1, Ryan Poles will not let you label this Bears season a rebuild. Who is Ryan Poles? Well, he is the 36-year-old first-year general manager of the Chicago Bears. And when he traded Roquan Smith the day before the trade deadline to the Baltimore Ravens, a lot of people thought, okay, this is a rebuild. The Bears are giving up the season. They're putting up the white flag. I got a 2nd and a 5th round pick back. That'll all add together. They'll be set for the draft next year. That's that. And then he went and got Chase Claypool and traded a 2nd round pick to do so. I love it. What Poles is essentially telling us is that he and Roquan Smith had got to an impasse. And Roquan Smith representing himself. So Roquan Smith views himself one way on the open market, and Ryan Poles views him another way. Whether you agree with Smith or Poles is one thing. Fact of the matter is they got a 2nd and a 5th round pick for Roquan Smith as opposed to nothing, which is what they would have gotten had he left this offseason and signed elsewhere. Next day, Chase Claypool's on the market. It's very rich, a 2nd round pick. And Poles says, you know what? We've got Velus Jones and Mooney on contract for the next few years. Let's give our young quarterback, Justin Fields, a big, tall, great pass-catching body that might be better than whatever we get in the 2nd round or in free agency at wide receiver. So Chase Claypool is the guy, and he goes up to Chicago. I like that this isn't a total rebuild. I like that Poles isn't being defined. And I like that the Chicago Bears have a 36-year-old first-year man at the helm who's not afraid to make some tough decisions. Number 2, I love the Ravens going and getting Roquan Smith. I love that deal. I love that deal because the Ravens know that there's a compensatory pick at the end of this thing. What's that mean? Well, they can trade a 2nd and a 5th and get the NFL's leading tackler. And they know that if they can't sign Roquan at the end of the year, well, they're probably getting a 3rd round pick back by the NFL because he leaves for a free agent destination and gets paid big money. That's what happens. You get a 3rd round pick back as the team that he's left. A half-year rental, a middle linebacker, a guy that they need on that defense now that they've had injuries. You put Patrick Queen at one inside linebacker, you put Roquan Smith at the other, and now we can go. We can go. We can play with Mahomes. We can play with Josh Allen. We can play with the Dolphins, the Chargers, or the Bengals, whoever else we bring with us because our defense was just solidified and made better by getting Roquan Smith. The Ravens are in a different spot than the Bears. The Ravens, they'd like to be able to say that they can compete in January. The Bears, they probably know they're not this year. This is a rare trade that works for both sides. Now, as for Eric DeCosta, the GM, what he's got to do in this offseason, well, he's got a lot of questions because there's the Patrick Queen contract situation, there's the Lamar Jackson contract situation, and now you got the Roquan Smith one. But at the very least, half-year rental, Roquan Smith, I like it. Number 3, being an NFL GM is hard. We've learned that from the last few days. We've learned that from the last few years. Everyone wants to be an NFL GM, or at least you think you can be if you own a fantasy football team. But take a look at the 2018 NFL draft, and you go through those top 8 picks. The first pick was Baker Mayfield. That general manager who drafted him, John Dorsey, has since been fired. The 2nd overall pick was Saquon Barkley. The general manager who drafted him, Dave Gettleman, has since been fired. The 3rd pick of that draft was Sam Darnold. The GM who drafted him, Mike McCagnon with the Jets, has since been fired. 4, Denzel Ward, back to John Dorsey and the Browns, fired. Number 5 pick in that draft was Bradley Chubb, who has since been traded, and the guy who drafted him was John Elway. He's been put to another part of the building. He's no longer the GM either. Number 6 was Quentin Nelson, Indianapolis Colts, and Chris Ballard's still there, but it's been a tumultuous year in Indianapolis, to say the least. Number 7 was Josh Allen. Brandon Beane took him. He's the executive of the year. So there's 1 out of 7, right? And then the 8th pick, as we know, was Roquan Smith, who has since been traded, and Ryan Pace, the guy who drafted him, he was fired too. So you have 8 top picks. All the GMs but 2 have been fired, and one of them's in the middle of a hellish season in Indianapolis. Being an NFL GM is hard, but if you can draft Josh Allen, things get a lot better. Number 4. I loved Terry McLaurin's homecoming in Indianapolis. This is a guy who went to high school in Indianapolis at Cathedral High, was the all-everything Mr. Football in the state of Indianapolis, and then goes to Ohio State, ends up going to play for Washington, where he's caught passes from everyone from Kyle Allen to the late Dwayne Haskins to Alex Smith to Ryan Fitzpatrick to Carson Wentz to Case Keenum to Colt McCoy, and now Taylor Heineke. And guess what? With the game on the line and 50 of his closest friends and family in the building, it was Terry McLaurin making the biggest play of the day against Indianapolis. He gets that catch over Stephon Gilmore, 33 yards, sets up the game-winning touchdown. And after the game, it's McLaurin with all his boys from high school in the locker room. That's like a dream come true type stuff. And then you look at the Commanders, and it's like 4-4. They've got a somewhat formidable schedule coming ahead, but there's kind of something good going on right now. They've won 3 straight games. They've been rallying around Heineke, and McLaurin has been worth every cent of that extension that they signed him to. Vikings Commanders. If you told me back in August this is the game of the week, I would have told you you're crazy. Vikings Commanders, with the Commanders being led by who? Terry McLaurin. I'm circling that game as probably my game of the week. Number 5, Tyreek Hill has been worth every penny and more for the Miami Dolphins. Do you guys see what Tyreek Hill's doing? If the season was to end today, he'd obviously lead the NFL in receiving yards. Now, here's the better part. He is on pace right now to have more than 2,000 receiving yards this season. That would break the NFL's all-time single-season record set by Calvin Johnson. It would be statistically the greatest receiving yard season in the history of the sport. And Tyreek's doing that in his first year in Miami, his first year with Tua, with a first-year head coach, and with Tua being out for about 3 of those games. Tyreek Hill is one of one, a special talent, and I have said it for years, and I will continue to say it on every single platform I can. He is a Pro Football Hall of Famer all day, all night, even if he never takes another snap in the NFL. Weird slate of games this week. 6 teams on a bye, bunch of teams who are under 500 playing against each other. And you know what? It's the NFL. Probably means it's going to be the best week of the season. Enjoy it, everybody. For more of my stuff, go on Fox Sports Digital and check the Fox Sports app.